A Watchman's Tale, The Night of Black Annis. You might think they're just old wives' tales, stories to scare the young ones into their beds, but I tell you, there's truth in them whispers. I know, 'cause I've seen her. I've felt the cold of her breath on my skin. I've heard the scream she makes when the wind howls through the trees. And though it's been years now, I swear to you, I'll never forget that night. Back then, I was the night watchman for Ratby. I weren't no nobleman, didn't have riches to my name, just a man with a lantern and a cudgel, walking the roads while better men slept. I'd keep an eye out for thieves, drunks, and the odd wild dog, but truth be told, I never thought much of the old stories. Ratby weren't much, a scatter of timber-framed cottages, roofs sagging, chimneys forever coughing up smoke. The market square, lively by day, was empty at night, the stalls swaying in the wind like old men waiting to fall. A brook cut through the village, its waters slow and murky, curling round the roots of an elm older than the church itself. Beyond that lay the fields, then the woods, then the Dane Hills. That was where the real dark began. Nights were quiet, too quiet. No birds, no fox cries, just the wind stirring the trees, shifting shadows where none should be. Folks locked their doors after sundown, not just for fear of thieves, but because some still believed, and maybe they were right. They called her Black Annis. They said she was a thing of hunger, something unnatural. Her skin was like old bruises, blue and cold as the dead. Her arms were too long, her fingers twisted, like she'd been stretched the wrong way. But it was her claws they feared the most, great iron talons that could tear through stone. Over the years, they say, she carved herself a lair in the cliffs, clawing at the sandstone, till she made a home beneath the roots of an ancient oak. And from its branches, she'd hang the skins of those she took, like some hunter displaying trophies. Folk had been talking more about her lately, not just old stories by the fire, but real fear creeping into the village. Just a fortnight past, young Samuel, the miller's boy, vanished. His mother swore blind that Black Annis had taken him, snatched him from his bed, while the rest of them slept. But me, I didn't believe it. Wolves, most likely, or the lad wandered too far and got lost in the hills. It had been a harsh winter, easy for a child to freeze before morning. Folk like to blame monsters when tragedy strikes. It's easier than facing the truth. Still, the village had changed since the boy went missing. Doors were bolted fast, windows shut tight. Mothers clutched their young ones closer when the wind howled through the hills. Some swore they'd seen shadows moving at the edge of the trees, or strange lights near the old oak. I told myself it was just nerves, the way stories take root in a man's mind. But as I set out one night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The air had a weight to it, the silence stretched too long. I tried to tell myself it was just another round on the roads, just another night. Most nights, I'd hear nothing but the hoot of an owl or the rustle of something small in the undergrowth. But that night, the stillness shattered like glass. A scream. Not the cry of a fox, not the wail of a lost soul. Something else, something wrong. It carried through the trees, high and hollow, like laughter twisted into pain, like the last breath of something being taken. I stopped where I stood, my lantern shaking in my hand. Cold ran through me, not the night chill, but something deeper. For the first time since I took this job, I felt alone. I turned toward the hills, though every part of me told me not to. The moon hung low, fat and yellow, casting its glow across the land in a silvery pallor. My boots sank into the damp earth with each step, the silence pressing in on all sides. The wind stirred the bracken, whispering through the trees like unseen voices. The further I walked, the heavier the night felt, as if the darkness itself were watching. Then, through the mist, I saw it. The oak tree, blackened and twisted, its gnarled branches clawing at the sky like grasping fingers. Then something moved. Not the skittish dart of a rabbit, not the slow, cautious step of a wolf. This was something else, deliberate, watching. I gripped my cudgel tighter as my lantern's glow flickered over the rocks. Then I saw her. Yellow eyes burned in the dark, hollow and gleaming like a predator's stare. Moonlight caught the curve of iron claws, wet with something slick and black. They twitched, restless, waiting. A slow breath rattled from the shadows, and every muscle in my body screamed to run. This was no fireside tale. This was real. But it was her face. Oh, Lord, help me. I saw her face. Her skin was pulled too tight, stretched like old leather over a skull too sharp, too wrong in shape. Deep cracks split across the surface, as if it might tear apart at the seams. What little remained of her lips curled back, exposing jagged, uneven teeth, some splintered down to the root. Her breath rattled from between them, thick and wet, carrying the stench of old decay. And her body, if it could be called that, was draped in stitched-together strips of human skin, stretched and cured like leather, their edges rough where they had been crudely bound together. Some pieces still bore the faint imprint of a mouth, a hand, the contours of a face. The skins clung to her obscene, twisted frame, shifting with her every breath, like they still remembered what it was to live. The air around her reeked of rot, and something worse, something old, something that should have never been unearthed. I tried to move, but my legs didn't respond. She moved too fast, too sudden. Her claws cut through the space where I'd stood a moment before, a blur of shadow and razored iron. I stumbled back, breath strangled in my throat, heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. The wind howled through the hills, but it wasn't just the wind anymore. It carried something else, something worse. I raised my lantern, a fool's instinct, a useless thing against something like her. She struck at me, a swipe too quick to follow. The glass exploded in a shower of flame, the fire sputtering uselessly against the cold ground. And then I felt it. Pain, white-hot, blinding. Her claws ripped through cloth, flesh, bone, like I was nothing but parchment. A sickening rip, a flash of searing pain. The sound that burst from my throat was raw, animalistic, something not meant for a man to make. My knees buckled, the warmth of my own blood spreading fast, soaking through fabric, dripping onto the cold earth. She stilled, just for a moment, and then she breathed in. Like a starving thing catching the scent of fresh meat, her fingers twitched, claws flexing, slick with my blood, glistening in the moonlight. The hunger in her movements sharpened. No more toying, no more patience. She lunged again, faster, wilder, the taste of spilled blood driving her into a frenzy. Terror crashed through me. This wasn't a battle. It wasn't a fight I could win. I turned and ran. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just ran. I don't remember much of that run. Only the sound of my own breath, ragged and desperate. Only the pain burning through my shoulder. Only the thought that she was right behind me. I ran till my lungs screamed, till my vision blurred, till I thought I'd fall dead where I stood. Then, silence. I stopped, gasping, my whole body shaking. I turned back toward the hills, expecting to see her standing there, grinning with those bloodied claws. But there was nothing, only the wind stirring the trees, the ancient oak swaying in the moonlight, the distant whisper of the night. I made it back to the village, barely able to stand. No one asked me what happened. They didn't need to. They saw the wounds on my shoulder, the blood soaked into my coat. They knew. By the next evening, every door in Ratby was locked before sundown, bolts drawn, latches checked twice. Fresh skins were nailed over windows, their scent thick in the air. No child was left outside after dark. No voice called through the streets. No one spoke of it. We didn't have to. We all knew. And we prayed it would be enough. Now, I'm an old man. I have seen war, famine, the wickedness of men, but nothing has haunted me like that night in the Dane Hills. It is not the cold that wakes me in the dark. It is the burning yellow of devilish eyes, seared into my mind like an ember that never fades. It is the wet rasp of breath, thick with the scent of old decay. It is the cold bite of iron talons, the way they carved through flesh as if drawn to the warmth of blood. Some horrors do not fade with time. Some things do not die. And when the wind wails through the trees, I know she is still out there, waiting, watching, hungry. So listen to me, traveler. If you ever hear a wailing through the trees, not the wind, but something sharper, something that chills your blood, take heed. If the scent of rotting flesh taints the air, thick and suffocating with no corpse in sight, be on guard. If you hear the scrape of iron against stone, slow and deliberate, like something waiting, listening, preparing, do not linger. Because it may be nothing. It may be the night playing tricks on your mind. Or it may just be black anise.